From the heart of trucker America, my boy Reed Coverdale, host of The Naturalist Capitalist.
As the left becomes less religious, they become more statist. And as the right becomes more religious, they still become more statist.
Whenever you add government, you by default remove community.
Most of the blame goes on Obama, but it actually starts with Bush, right? Like in 2006.
Is he sitting very still, or did his phone go out?
And I have no intention of keeping any promise that I make.
It's bad that the state is as big as it is.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for watching The Naturalist Capitalist. I'm your host, Reed Coverdale, and we have quite the lineup today. I'm super excited about this. We got my friend Eric Jackman from Jackman Radio back on the show. How's it going today, Eric?
Awesome, Reed. So happy to be here with you and these edgelords that you've assembled.
Yeah, this is the Libertarian Avengers right here. We got Pete Quiñones from the Free Man Beyond the Wall podcast. How are you doing today, Pete?
Doing well. Is this episode 100?
This is episode 100. So
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
I had Tom Woods on for episode 100. You have me on for episode 100. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry.
It is what it is. I got Tom coming on soon, so it's all good. And then, of course, we have Ryan Dawson from the Anti-Neocon Report, who is actually he got banned off of Facebook, but now he's back on Twitter. So making headway, right, Ryan?
Kind of, like my fourth Twitter account or something was returned, and I just discovered it. Was I the only one doing the Brady Bunch thing during the intro, like looking at all the squares?
I'm wondering if this is some kind of fucked up political compass.
Ooh, yeah, that's scary.
Yeah, I'm glad. Good to be with you, Reed. I'm glad your tech stuff is working this time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice to be part of the conversation this time. Hopefully I don't get kicked off 11 times or whatever. But so did you and Pete like both collaborate on getting your Twitter back somehow, or did that just happen randomly at the same time, or what's going on there?
Well, no, I think what happened is somebody sent me a Twitter link or whatever on Discord, and I clicked on it to see if I could at least still read it. And I found out that I had mine back. So I said to Pete on Skype, hey, I got my Twitter back. And then maybe he checked and found his was back too. I don't know. Is that what happened?
Yeah, I just woke up and I got an email alert on the phone, and it was from that account. And I was just like, and they said, oh, well, we've restored it. And then I went and hit up another friend of mine through MeWe, and he had his restored basically at the same time. It sounds like something coordinated is happening.
Maybe somebody not woke got on the wheel and just started re-adding the list of like, oh, what's the red list? I'm going to re-add all the red people.
Yeah, you guys should try to get in contact with Trump. Maybe his account's back up and he just doesn't know it yet.
Well, I have a sock puppet account under John Barron. It's not me. It's a guy who works for my company. His name is John Barron. He's a great guy. He's a great guy.
Oh, man.
You remember when he did that? When Trump would call
Blast
reporters
from the past, yeah.
In the early 90s, he would be, hey, my name is John Barron. I work for Mr. Trump. He'd kind of muffle his voice a little bit, but it's so obvious it was him. I work for Donald, and his finances are doing incredibly well. He actually turned down Princess Diana and Audrey Hepburn for a three-way. He's doing very, very well with his business. The women love him, so you put that in Vanity Fair. You know,
don't you miss him a little bit?
I miss him every day, Ryan. I fucking miss him. You know,
like the government's gonna suck anyway. It might as well be entertaining.
Yeah. Well, it's still kind of entertaining right now. I mean, it's just a different type of like depressing entertainment. It's you know.
I got a white pill right here. This is like my Pavlovian reaction. They see the rainbow frog. It means there's good news. Do you see Russia just sanctioned 8 diplomats or kicked out 10 diplomats and sanctioned 8 people? And on the top of the list, Captain Shithead himself, John Bolton.
Drink to that.
I love it. Yeah, you should. I had some John Wilkes Booth last night. That's an actual cocktail.
That's what is that, Ryan?
It's mind blowing.
It's really good. It's Hey, they stabbed Seward in the face the same night. It was a bad day for government. Yeah. Today is the anniversary of the secession of Virginia. So got that on the calendar too.
Mother Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Virginia is barely Southern anymore. The damn donut around DC with all the lobbyists have they voted 94% for Biden in DC. How do you get 94% anything anywhere, right? Well, lobbyists, of course, but that is the swamp, and they had chosen their candidate. It's like that every time. 300,000 votes just in Fairfax for Biden. It flipped the whole state blue. Like the whole state's red except for the very tippy top of Nova, which is deep, deep blue around DC. It's pathetic. Hate seeing it.
What's in a John Wilkes Booth, though, Ryan? What is in that cocktail?
It's rye whiskey, root, cinnamon sticks, if you got them. And it sneaks up on you like an assassin. They didn't have root, which that's one of the only American liquors. And so he just threw some root beer in there instead and added extra whiskey. So it's pretty good. I have them every anniversary of Lincoln's death. Stinking
excellent, man. That's excellent.
So what I wanted to talk about today a little bit was vaccine passports. Canada is seemingly turning into a police state. There's a video that I saw yesterday. I don't know if they put it out yesterday, but they're basically giving the police the authority to stop anyone anywhere, ask them why they are out of their house, and if they can't give explicit reasons as to why they're traveling or why they're going somewhere, then I think they can get detained. And they're encouraging people to call the cops on their neighbors if they see them out and about. So, all the conspiracy theorists, quote unquote, who have been worried about what's coming down the pipe, it's kind of down the pipe. It's here. And I don't know, like what are things like in Japan, Ryan? What are they, how tough are they there? Are they relaxed or?
They're not doing papers, please. They already joined that team once and didn't work out well. In Japan, everything is up to you. So if you want to wear a mask, you can, but you don't have to. They legally can't make you. Stores can't make you. The government can't make you because it's unconstitutional. A lot of people are wearing masks, but a lot of them did that anyway because of its allergy season or whatever. But you don't have to do it. There's no talk of COVID passports or any of that. The only cities that ever had restrictions at all was Osaka and Tokyo. The rest of the country, it's like there is no COVID. They don't even think about it.
Well, yeah. Ryan, let me ask you a question. I think that the reason why it's more free there is because after World War II, they had to have a constitution, and doesn't the United States government basically hold them to the constitution? So they hold a foreign country to a constitution, but they don't hold themselves to a constitution, right? Is that pretty much?
But the odd thing is the constitution they ended up with was just a clone of the U.S. Constitution plus all the amendments up to that point, right? And women's lib was a big thing because Japan didn't have that till after World War II, so that was a major change. But the U.S. can't make Japan do anything. I mean, there's plenty of things they don't like that the Japanese are doing, but the culture here is such of, they're not going to allow Tokyo to make orders for the rest of the country. This place was barely together under an emperor, and states or prefectures are like their own country. They don't have this massive Lincolnite attitude of the federal government can run rucksack over everyone else. Nara is Nara, Kyoto is Kyoto. And they are the way they are, and they have very different laws from each other. And nobody really likes the Tokyo government. Nobody thinks they do anything. No one pays attention to politics because they're like, it doesn't matter. All that matters is your state government.
Okay.
Yeah. So Pete, you had someone contact you several months ago about the vaccine passports in pre-production, right? You want to talk about that a little bit, what they described them as being?
Well, yeah, he just told me he worked for a company that started to design it. This was 6-7 months ago. And he said, I have to quit my job. I can't be a part of this. And I think that's pretty that says a lot about the character of the person. But I think at this point, whoever is putting together the COVID passports, it would be nice to find out what companies are doing that, what companies are working on that, because I know that we have a lot of white and black hats on our side, and to see what we can do about that.
Yeah, I mean, I watched your video with Scott Horton where you were talking about the vaccine passports, and I think he's probably right that the outcry against it will keep it from happening. It seems to be the case so far, but that's no reason to let down the guard. I mean, the reason it's not happening is because so many people are outraged about it, but it doesn't seem like it's going to take hold. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, what we could see is basically what we saw during the quote unquote pandemic is federalism jumping in like some states, say Illinois, New York, California. You have to have a vaccine passport to live there, to travel there, whatever. And then, Florida, Georgia, Montana, a lot of the flyover will not. And then hopefully that would lead to a lot of breakup talk. And, you'd hear, we need secession, like serious secession talk to break through the Overton window. And then I think that we can really get the ball rolling in this country without bullets flying. But I mean, bullets are going to fly anyway because the Chauvin verdict's coming out very soon.
Well,
yeah, that's true.
Four states already banned passports, like preempted it. That's Florida, Texas, Mississippi, and Arkansas. And then 2 states have bills on the books, Tennessee and Virginia, to ban the passports. So
let's see if Virginia does it, because
I think North Dakota. Yeah, I'm really hoping Virginia does, because if they do, so will North Carolina. And then North Dakota, Montana, and Alaska. And then a lot of the west and southern states have gotten rid of mask mandates. And they're just now getting around to banning the passport. And it's basically Republican governors, plus Kansas, I think, which has a Democrat, but they're still red.
Ryan, who I wouldn't be surprised if they were involved in the racket around vaccine passports, is a ghoul like Michael Chertoff. I could see
Peter Thiel.
Do you remember what Michael Chertoff did with ECI and the scanners for underwear and the scanners for cargo?
Yeah,
right.
Well, wasn't that like a company he was involved in that had that all going, and he was profiting off it?
$51 million in the red, and then they got that fat contract and turned it all around.
Right. So
it's specifically for underwear scanners.
Well, there you go. New Hampshire, our governor here this week let the mask mandate expire. So I'm really happy about that. Sununu he's done his best, I think, with pushback that you get from some of the cucks here who are like, we need masks forever, and I just can't wait to get my vax. And
that's just the libertarians.
Yeah, it's rugged, but no, Sununu's handled it pretty well, and I could see him being supportive of a bill here in New Hampshire or supporting a law in the legislature that bans the COVID vaccine passport.
I'm waiting for them to say rejecting masks or passports is racist.
Oh my God.
Have they already?
Because I mean, it's ridiculous. It doesn't make sense, but does anything they do make sense? Right? You don't like illegal immigration? Well, you're a racist. You're not wearing a mask, you're a racist. Just throw that out there.
Yeah.
Because the R word works, but I think the pushback from parents and stuff. I mean, my brother was telling me in North Carolina, his kids have to wear masks while they're playing soccer, which other than the goalie, you're basically running the whole time and you have to have a mask on.
Sick.
The COVID is 1/8 of a micron wide. It's putting a mask on to stop. It's like putting a aluminum fence in your yard to stop the mosquitoes.
But the spittle, the spittle.
Right.
I smack everyone in the mouth for there are so many terms that I really never used before in my life that I really want to smack people in the mouth for, bringing into my lexicon, like comorbidities and spittle and caring, because I really don't.
Socially distant. I fucking hate that.
Social 6 feet. It used to mean you're dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're just not available. You're just socially distant. My marriage is just socially distant right now, and
Well, now it's 3 feet. Looks like you're living in a shallow grave. So,
Well, they I love how the airports are 6 feet apart and then they're all together on the plane anyway.
yeah.
Do even science. It doesn't matter to these people. They're so authoritarian that it's just there's a rule. You got to obey the rule. So the rule doesn't make any sense, and you can point that out to them, and it doesn't matter. They're not even listening.
Yeah.
Right? It's like going to a restaurant and you take your mask off when you sit at the table because COVID doesn't exist on the table where everybody spends the majority of their time eating and drinking. It only exists in a little corridor from the door to the table, right?
Yeah, well, COVID can only go 5 feet or higher. So once you sit down, you're below
Right.
it. It flows over your head.
And if you have the plexiglass shield, man, you're totally protected and incubated. Yeah,
Yeah, when they had the things on the floors, like 6 feet apart, and I saw one where they were 6 feet apart in a line, but then side by side they're like 2 feet apart. So COVID can only go in one direction. It can't, it can't go sideways at all.
I think we should Bill Hicks it. You know how you out evangel the evangels? I would get if I don't live in a draconian police state, but if I lived in one of those shithole countries like America, I would get a Viper car alarm, that it's like warning. Every time you get too close to the car, it's like protected by Viper, and it's gonna mace you if you don't move.
I was in New York in September, and we were. I was going to restaurant. I was going to restaurants, and the restaurants were in the middle of the street. They were still enclosed, but now they were just in the middle of the street. It's just madness. It's like thinking people, of which there are maybe 0.5% of the population, are just looking at this and going, "This is friggin' stupid." And then I would assume that there are a small religious minority that have completely bought into this. They're also the loudest, or the ones that are on Twitter. And I think the rest of everybody is just going along to get along. And I mean, I can't do that. I mean, even before I woke up and saw the stupidity of the war state and things like that, I didn't go along to get along. I mean, this is just, it's madness to me that you don't question this. Why? Because you care what your neighbor thinks. Well, maybe that's why you're $300,000 in debt, because you care what your neighbor thinks, and you've acquired all this debt to have all this stuff to try and make them jealous, the boats and the friggin' cars and everything. I hate this fucking culture, man.
I always wonder what it is that red pills people. Like, I was never asleep. They're like, when did you realize the government is like? I'm like, always, since I could talk. But I'm wondering like what it is that someone's being a normie or whatever, and then like that happened, and suddenly it's like Jeremy Bentham and said, like the scales fell from my eyes, and now I can see it all, or whatever. Like you put on the glasses from They Live or whatever. Your Rowdy Piper moment. Like what is? Because I would love to like bottle that up and give it to everybody. Whatever shook them out of the day.
Pepper spray it.
I think it's different for everybody. For me, it was clearly putting on the glasses and seeing the war state. And I know people who it was reading what's his name, the teacher, John Taylor Gatto. People like just listened to a John Taylor Gatto talk, and it was like they got red pilled from that, and then they just went down the rabbit hole. I think it's different for everybody. It's like it's like they talk about in the Bible. You just go forth and you preach the gospel, and people are going to hear different things. So,
do you have a moment of your time to read the Industrial Society and Its Future by Ted?
That's
knocking on doors.
That took me to another level. That took me to like the all this technology. Look at all this technology, and I start questioning it. Like, I don't know if this is really good for us.
Yeah, I was lucky enough. My dad has 5 brothers, and they're all Mondo based. My dad's family's from Canada, from Newfoundland, so they're not American.
Newfies.
Yeah, goofy Newfies. And I had the advantage of just being like a young
from
kid.
Sunnyvale,
St. John, Newfoundland.
Damn, that would have been awesome.
They were always questioning the JFK assassination and telling me about it when I was like an 8-year-old kid. Hence I got JFK behind me. He's my favorite president, and a lot to love about Kennedy. But so as a young kid, you're like, well, who's JFK? Why was he killed? Who killed him? How did they cover it up? So I was really young, and that was kind of my gateway into that world. And then I remember my uncle telling me about the Gulf of Tonkin and the Liberty when I was like a young kid. So I had that view going.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
really.
yeah, I had, yeah. So I got red pilled on that shit when I was like 12, 13 years old, and no Wikipedia, so you had to go into the library dig up these books and read about this stuff, and that really got me going into it. And then obviously when 9/11 happened, I was 14, going on 15, and my uncle was already super based about it, talking about urban moving systems and the trucks and all this other shit that was a blip for like the first week, and then you never heard about it again. But my uncle was telling me about it, and that really piqued my interest. So that's
Some
always
of
how.
us writing about it, but and it was a small group. It was like myself, Rivero, Justin Raimondo, just here and there, people saying, wasn't there something about the van, or and it kind of faded. But what happened is that, and I won't spend a lot of time on this, I promise, but the kook movement just hijacked that whole thing.
Right.
And so even those who knew didn't want to like admit it, because we don't want to be associated with the weirdos that believe in lizard people.
Pods.
Yeah, pods, missiles, and all that stuff.
So yeah, that's why Mike and I are the way we are. That's why we don't come at politics with the stupid left-right partisan bullshit and the divide and conquer tactics. We've had the glasses on since we were kids, man. So we've been lucky.
My dad's an English teacher, and he teaches Orwell and Huxley, and he was talking to us about the different types of societies we could possibly end up being in while we were growing up. And he was a pretty staunch Republican, voted for George Bush, but I was 7 when 9/11 happened, and when I was 9 years old, we were all out on the side of the road protesting the war in Iraq, even though he voted for George Bush. So that was kind of instilled from an early age. But then I wandered away. I sort of became a dumbass neocon in high school, and then eventually, believe it or not, it was Rand Paul who kind of brought me over to the liberty movement, which is kind of weird looking back now, but it was him at the time. He used to be kind of
Rand, not Ron. That is weird.
Yeah. Oh well. But
Ron Paul was awesome though, because I had Bill Still's old VHS tapes on Money Masters and stuff about the Fed, and I just thought, man, we're never gonna get this message out. And then Ron Paul happened, and I had teenagers coming up and telling me, "Do you know about the Federal Reserve and fractional reserve banking?" Blah 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 blah. Stuff I just thought is too nerdy. They don't give a shit, and it doesn't matter how important it is. And then Ron Paul comes along with blimps in the air, which we were part of, and that message is a whole generation got to hear that, right? And so that's why I got more white pilled. You never know when a Ron Paul or a Ted Kaczynski is going to pop up. Very different guys.
Yeah,
delivering basically the same message
out, even
sort of delivering the same message. Yeah.
Well, Ryan, that liberty is popular with the young kids, and they want to get rid of the Federal Reserve and buy gold and have their guns. And if they want to be gay and they want to boogaloo, they should be able to do it. Yeah, we were.
Looks like you. that Thornton Downey Jr. thing was the best.
You like cheeseburgers? You should stop eating cheeseburgers, Porky. Yeah, Mike and I were big Ron Paul guys early. So I came into college as a cucked liberal Democrat. I voted for Kerry in 2004. I bought into the divide that Kerry and Bush were two different entities, and we needed Kerry in there. And then I got into college, and I got my uncle, of course, my based uncle, told me about Ron Paul. He's like, "Man, you heard of this guy from Texas, this badass motherfucker, Ron Paul, who wants to end the Federal Reserve and shut down the war state and bring all of our troops home and get rid of all our military bases?" I'm like, "No, tell me more about Ron Paul."
I always start with get rid of the IRS.
Yeah. That's a great place to start. So Ron Paul did events like in late 2006, early 2007 here in New Hampshire, and my brother and I and another friend from college went to one of his first big events, and I was hooked from there, man. We became big supporters, and Ron, like you said, Ron Paul was a great gateway for my barely developed college brain, and it really changed my views on a lot of things getting in with that crowd.
This is very white pilling because we have a former neocon and a former liberal who have completely seen the light. So everyone's reachable if we figure out the way. But it seems like both of you figured it out on your own.
Yeah, Pete just went straight to anarchy from 2008 and just found out about Ron Paul and then just went down the slope right away, right, Pete?
Pretty much. Yeah.
Also, that you were political at 14 just shows lots of 14-year-olds have stupid opinions. Maybe they used to be a communist, a liberal, a neocon, whatever, but you guys are like, well, when I was in high school, blah blah blah. I'm like, oh, it doesn't matter what you thought in high school, right?
Yeah.
So you were gonna reach it anyway. But,
Yeah, the brain was going to.
These kids make you feel old, making me feel old, saying they're in high school with 9/11.
Wait, how old are you, Ryan? I don't even know.
I was not in high school during 9/11. I can tell you that.
Wow.
I think I was the perfect age for 9/11 to do 20 years of research on it. So I was 21, 22, something like that. Yeah.
Wow.
I was finishing college, and yeah, it was awful. We had just had an argument in the car about Palestine and Israel. I said, one day it's going to be it will be in your backyard, because they didn't see why I cared so much about it. I said, you don't understand how much Likud runs American foreign policy. And then that was September 10th. We had that argument. The next day, boom.
Oh,
Jesus. That's pretty.
And they immediately had the tapes of dancing Palestinians and blamed it on bin Laden. And da, 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 da.
They had it all queued up. It was insane. So you're finishing college. I was just starting high school. And I actually, in 8th grade, that summer before in May, had gone to New York City for really one of the first times that I could remember it. And we went to the Statue of Liberty. We were out in the harbor, and there's a picture of me in front of the World Trade Center on a ferry in the harbor in May. And I remember just being in awe of those buildings, like, holy shit. Because I'm used to Boston, and the tallest building in Boston is less than half the size of the World Trade Center was. So that was
our tallest building is the lighthouse. Outside of that, it'd just be like a normal house. So,
yeah,
we didn't have television stations of our own. We got Virginia's stations from Hampton Roads because there was no like center that could reach the islands. So when we would see the news or whatever, it wasn't even our news, and it didn't even make sense because we would get commercials for McDonald's and all these things that don't exist, right? We're like, oh, well, that's what tourists watch, and we know how dumb they are. So we just thought, well, TV, whatever. It just looked so fake because it had no semblance of where we actually lived, and it showed like how the way they speak and stuff on television is all inside, like the da 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 da, and the way tourists would talk, they would say, do you have a Chili's, something? And the whole concept of chain stores and franchises was foreign to us because we didn't have any. We didn't have a stoplight. It's like none of the crap we saw on television applied to us. And we would just watch the news like confused about what they're even arguing about. Because it just wasn't our world at all. And I was just like, he's lying, here's lying, she's lying. And they are. You saw the Project Veritas piece recently, right, guys? It's big shock. CNN lied.
No way.
CNN was anti-Trump. Right. I really needed Project Veritas to figure that one out. But some people do. They need to see a CNN employee sitting there saying, yeah, when COVID's losing steam, we're going to run with ClimateGate next. Fear sells. Just saying the quiet parts out loud.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what's amazing to me is how sloppy they're getting, like what they're willing to say now. I mean, maybe they've always done it, but I haven't noticed it before. There was a clip that came out a couple weeks ago, and I forget the woman's name, but she was on with Cuomo, and she was saying that, if we let these states open up without, using freedom as a carrot to have everybody get the vaccine, then they're going to enjoy their freedoms without being enticed to get. I forget how she said it. She said something like, "We need to tie."
We have a narrow window to nail this down because
reopening or something. It was like, how can anyone watch that and not just freak out? But people are so plugged in, they don't even notice. It's fucking scary.
Is it amazing to you that they're willing to do that when, I mean, it's really easy to find these people's addresses?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
I mean, it almost seems like in the last year, especially, they're just begging people to start shooting. But there is no line. I don't know if there is a line anymore that Americans are willing to say no to. I mean, maybe it's gun confiscation, but then again, if the local police are the ones doing it, I mean, hey, my cousin's a local cop and he's a really good guy. He's never violated the Constitution and everything. So maybe him coming to get my gun is what I need. Yeah, maybe that's for the greater good.
I never not a good guy if he comes to get your gun.
Yeah.
It'd be like your other friend that quit their job when you're forced to do something like that.
Yeah,
it's just, I see the divide is still the divide it always was. It's North and South, and I consider the Midwest Southern culturally, because that's who's resisting the mask mandates and the passports and all the rest of it. That's who wants to have voter ID. That's who wants to have legal and illegal immigration, like common sense stuff. That's the people that say, hey, there's only a man and woman, making up the rest of these genders, you know. And it's San Francisco and New York that is pulling the policy. They create massive debts and they take all the tax money from everyone else and spend it on themselves like they always have. And people need to recognize this. I think, you know, Florida, especially DeSantis, is just like showing people the way. Like, you can stand up to these people and the public will support it. But most people don't want to walk around with a mask. They're only doing it because they just don't have the courage or whatever to take it off. But they don't want to. They're just doing it because it's the path of least resistance. But as soon as the state gets rid of it, they're all like, okay, and take it off that day, right? Texas said I don't have to wear a mask, so I'm not.
I've seen the opposite, right? Actually. Like in Utah here, they already lifted the mandate, but all the stores still have their signs up. And at first I thought like people weren't wearing masks, but I went in the grocery store yesterday. Everyone's still wearing a mask, and I didn't wear one in, and I got tons of angry looks from everybody. Pete, weren't you saying your friend in Texas saw more masks after they lifted the mandate or something? Or
yeah, and that's a small town. He said that after the mandate was lifted in Texas, he actually saw more masks. But I want to ask you,
I didn't see any in Florida when I was there. I was like,
I've noticed that, like, Georgia, I was in Alabama last week when Georgia lifted all their mandates. And when I got back, I mean, I haven't been wearing a mask into anywhere, even places where it says it's required, for a while. And I noticed that no one has said anything in the last week, and no one really has even given me a look or anything like that. I mean, I was in the post office, and the post office here has been mandating it strictly, and I wasn't wearing one, and there was a bunch of people in there, and it was really, no one was really looking at me. So I think it's one of those things. I think I wrote on my Substack yesterday that, you know, the people really see the state as daddy, and even if they're not ready to take off their mask, the fact that the state said it's okay sort of makes it okay. And you know, they're like, well, I'm not ready to take my whoopee off of my face yet, but if somebody else wants to do it, that's fine. And it seems to be spilling out now, hopefully.
Right.
A lot of them are prolonging it for different reasons. They're not actually scared of the virus or whatever. They just like their free gives. Nice boots.
Yeah, I got these from Texas. Just wanted to show you guys.
That's awesome.
America, motherfuckers.
See a better flag on there, though.
Yeah, so Ryan, I don't see it quite as cut and dry of a split as you do, because I see one half of the country loves the administrative side of the state, and then the other half loves the enforcement arm. So you have the half that hates the rules but loves the thugs who are going to throw them in a cage if they don't follow it, and then the other half hates the thugs but they want all these rules, and they're screaming at each other while they're both supporting half of the problem. And I think sometimes I forget how much conservatives suck until there's a police shooting, and then you just like see all the bootlickers come out of the woodwork, and it's just like, oh my, I mean, regardless of what the shooting was about, like they just come out with their thin blue line shirts and their,
well, even when one of theirs gets shot, right? Like Ashley, was it Babbitt? A cop in DC kills her, and both parties are like, oh, well, she's an unarmed civilian woman that without any warning or anything, some government thug just shot and killed her. And it's on film. Where's the riots or whatever?
Right.
I mean, at least it was a white lady, not a privileged class, because then the media would have had something. They could have made a race thing or whatever. Those people were protesting because they didn't feel like their votes or their protests of the election were being heard. There are all these weird anomalies, votes counted in the middle of the night and all that stuff. And they weren't argued out of that. They weren't even allowed to talk about it. So that's why they ended up in the building, because they're like, you're not listening. And they did it on purpose. And that's why I swear to God, they want someone to shoot somebody. They want the civilians to create a pretext for them to come and get the guns and crack the whip even harder, because they're just twisting the screws on people more and more. That woman you were talking about, she's talking to Cuomo, whose brother put COVID, people with COVID in nursing homes, the group that actually is vulnerable, and then tried to deny it and stuff. But what's taking him down? Not that. It's his Me Too sexual escapades, right? But now in New York, if someone in your family died, you claim it's COVID, you can get a $9,000 check. So it's like anytime there's a little bit of resistance, these Yankees are like, we'll give you some money, and it's other people's money, but you know, we'll steal some money from people, give it to you. Like, okay, you know, that'll placate it.
They consider this to be more dangerous than lockdowns. This 15-round magazine is more dangerous than locking people in their homes for 6 months to a year. And California, I think, I was told this week that they're on lockdown until June. Then they're going to look at it again, and the mask mandate is indefinite.
I think that's wonderful.
Yeah. Well, you would hope that it would drive all of the good people out of California and leave the rest of them to starve, die, fall into the ocean, which I'm perfectly fine with. Maybe
I know four people
maybe a
personally,
bubonic plague or something.
4 people personally that have leaving California to go to Texas, just because of all the mask crap, and they were sick of the liberal faggotry already, but with the mask thing, they're like, I can't handle this. And people like from LA are going to Huntington Beach now and trying to throw their weight around about the mask mandates and stuff. And there are certain restaurants down there. I went to an Italian restaurant that's had the Galveston flags outside, and they let everybody eat indoor, no mask, no problem, because they don't care. But the authoritarian mindset, it's like the science is settled. No, it's not. That's not even how science works, by the way. It's never settled. But there was no dialogue, no debate ever on any of these things, on climate change, on COVID, on anything. They should like, this is what I need it to be, because this allows me carbon credits and shutting down small businesses and all that. They don't see any way how, gee, does somebody benefit from these rules that they're hiding behind an invisible enemy? You know, whether it's the climate or terrorism or COVID or whatever, there's this invisible enemy, and they're the only ones that have the tools to measure it or anything. You can't, and you just got to trust what they say. And by the way, they're taking all your freedoms away.
Yeah, and like you've said before, it's any deviation. It's not flat out rejection of everything. It's just if you don't buy their narrative 150%, then you're a denier. Then you're a crazy person. Like there's a lot of space between denial and not buying everything that they're saying, and they just put you in two camps. You're in one or the other.
How do you guys deal with blockheads when they come to you and go, which one did you get? When are you getting it? Did you get your second shot yet? So I do a couple things. If it's a guy, I do Trump. I go, well, I like that, Pete. That's good. I go, we're taking a look at the vaccine. We're looking at Russia. We're looking at China. We're looking at Mexico. We're going to look at all of it. We're taking a strong look at that, but we'll see what happens. And then if some pushy broad gets in my face.
He's doing the face. That's the best part, is he's doing the face perfectly while he's saying that.
Well, thank you, Peter. I look at this face. It's not Carly Fiorina's face. It's a beautiful face. Okay. But so I do that when I just want to fuck, with someone. And then if it's some pushy broad who gets in my face, some authoritarian fucking soccer mom bitch, I go, I let her say her piece, and I go, what form of birth control are you on? Are you on birth control? And then she goes, that's a personal question. And then I just go like this. So
I like the Ron Swanson reply to those kind of things. When somebody asks him, what religion are you? He goes, what religion am I? Well, I'm a practicing none of your business.
Yeah, exactly. But we are in peak clown world. And something like that, I don't get triggered about shit or anger. I'm just a fucking massive troll. But that's how I've been handling it and dealing with it. And Ryan, living in an authoritarian kind of environment, you got to be a little bit like Bill Hicks, man. That's like the
no
only way
one's
to
asked me at all about shots or anything like that.
I'm sure in Japan, yeah, they're probably
even when I visited the U.S., it was just it's pretty obvious what my answer is going to be. Most people don't approach me. So
you know, Ryan's he's gonna err on the side of Bay Street, isn't he?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
it's just,
it's just
I hate the people. It's like she said yes, I got my vaccine. Like it's at the same level of excitement when they post on social media. I mean, they're just euphoric.
They can't wait to post their servitude in the government.
Celebrity commercials for it and stuff. I was like, oh well, we should have celebrities like, I don't know, Marvin Hagler, maybe DMX.
Hank Aaron.
Oops, wait, Hank Aaron. Yeah, I have a signed ball from Hank Aaron.
They used him to show him getting vaccinated to the black community. So it was like, oh, so it's okay since Hank is getting it, and then he was dead 2 weeks later.
Hey, what happens in Tuskegee stays in Tuskegee.
Oh.
Yep.
Did you guys see
St. Louis? Yeah, too.
Did you see Nico House? Nico House said his grandfather took it. His 90-year-old grandfather, 89, and he fucking died not shortly afterwards. So it
doesn't matter how many times it happens. I use this analogy. What if I went around saying peanut allergies don't exist? Look at all the people that eat peanut butter and peanuts all the time. But obviously it does exist. And some people, a few, I don't know what the percent is or whatever, it'll kill them just like eating it once. Mm-hmm. There are some people that are obviously having adverse reactions to these vaccines. Now, I did get asked about wearing a mask when I was on the airplane, and I told them I was allergic to stupid.
Yeah, that's right. And you had a bag full of the battle flags, right?
Yeah, I did. I was passing them around. I brought a bunch of plastic straws to Los Angeles as contraband, and I was wearing Confederate flag everything, even shorts, and I was out at the block in Venice Beach handing people plastic straws as contraband. It's like, here you go. Fuck those paper straws, man. Fuck them paper straws. And they're like, you ain't from around here, are you? And I'm like, God, you're dumb as I thought.
Probably looking at you though.
They just couldn't believe I was out there wearing this basically. And then I was handing out straws and people took them. And everyone's like, you're brave. But I'm like, no one's going to do anything. They probably thought I'm crazy. And they probably thought I was armed. I was just like, nothing will happen. It's California.
So what does confiscation look like to you guys? I mean, obviously they're psyoping with it and it's going in that direction, but like the actual act of the state coming in and taking people's firearms. I mean, how does that play out?
That's not the way it's going to happen.
Right.
They're just going to freeze your bank accounts and everything until you hand them in.
There's a buyback program.
Buyback.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, everyone thinks it'll be like, the troops going door to door or something. That would be the dumbest way to do it ever. Like, yeah, they'll have some program or something that you have to, they mostly know, well, not mostly, but a lot of them, they know like who has what guns now because they track them when you buy them. And yeah, it'll be something like that they'll just punish you if you don't turn them in.
Yeah. So they'll just squeeze people to the point of their backs to the wall and your life is just fucked if you don't hand in your guns.
Yeah.
It's a slippery slope with them going after statues and all this other stuff. I'm like, look, man, these are not just symbols of defiance. Like, this is how they get the bully culture in your face and looking like it's the majority when it isn't, right? Having them out there ripping things down and act like you better comply or else, they're going to loot your store next and the cops are going to allow it, right? And same thing with guns. They're going to do a buyback program. If you're not in on board, they'll treat you like they do me, ban you on all the payment processors and turn your bank off,
Yeah, Pete, didn't they do something sort of similar to that in New York when they passed the SAFE Act because they mostly knew who had guns and how did they go about that? They kind of knew who had what guns for the most part. And
well, that was open defiance. I mean, gun owners were going into town hall meetings and going, come and get them. Mm-hmm. We're not handing in. We're not putting blocks in our magazines to make them 7 rounds. Just come and get them. And I don't remember them shutting off payment. I mean, they shut off payment. I remember about 8 years ago, here in Georgia, I think it was Silencer Co. I think Silencer Co. is based out of here. They lost their banking, and they were right after Newtown, right after Sandy Hook. There was a bunch of gun companies that got their stuff shut off, and not like the major gun companies, because they're not going to go after them, but like people that make suppressors and things like that. They started going after them. So, I mean, I think that was a test run for everything. That I think that's coming. I mean, we see it. Cody tries to start Patreon, and he can't get a payment processor for that. So, I mean, there's ways that it's going to happen. I mean, I've talked to Ryan privately about payment processors and what you can do. And Leah Ryan's had to basically do his own thing in order to get paid, in order for,
I got to put my money in a foreign bank. Right. And I've got some on an Indian reservation, which is also foreign, technically supposed to be sovereign land, but I'm not sure how long that lasts, because it's like whenever it's convenient, that just never applies, it seems like. But I have to use, I can't use any mainstream anything, and I can't use any American companies. That one Twitter account that I just got back, which I guarantee you will not last very long, is the only American company I'm using. Like, I'm not on YouTube. I'm not on I use VK. I use Telegram. On like either Russian or Asian stuff for everything. It's ridiculous, because I have to be. I've been kicked off everything else, and they never give me a reason why. It's just, I know why though. It's because I go pretty hard in the paint on Israel,
right?
And you're not allowed to do that.
Yeah.
The Epstein stuff has probably gotten me in trouble too. I am pissing off billionaires.
Yeah, Pete, I think you made a good point that, we got locked down for a year in a country with 500 million guns, and there wasn't an uprising. So I sometimes wonder how concerned they actually are that we're armed, because it's almost like Soma. If you allow them to keep their guns, you don't really have to worry about them doing anything. Like, if you try to take the guns, I mean, that's why I'm surprised Biden's going forward with the gun stuff, because it seems to me be way smarter to just leave it alone, because it's not a threat. Obviously, nobody gives a fuck. They're just going to let them do whatever they want. Do you think that's kind of weird? Like, why even attempt if you can lock us down for a year and we don't do anything? Why bother with the guns?
Yeah, American gun ownership is like Schrodinger's gun ownership. It's like, I mean, does it exist? Is it, where is it? If there are guns here, it's like the first thing I said on January 6th after the quote unquote insurrection was, well, it's a really weird insurrection if a country with allegedly 500 million guns doesn't show up for
right.
the insurrection. I mean, it
wasn't an insurrection.
Yeah, it wasn't. It was just it was a bunch of people taking selfies and looking for laptops. But I mean, really, I think the idea of Soma when it comes to gun ownership is correct, as long as they're not making a move on them. I mean, and think about this: 1994 assault weapon ban. You would think that would have done something, but then again, it really wasn't an assault weapons ban. It made things really weird for 10 years. You buy an AK with a folding stock, and the folding stock is welded open, and
right.
But all the old magazines were grandfathered in. All the old rifles were grandfathered in. Everything was grandfathered in. Yeah, I think you make a good point, Reed, that as long as they're not going to make a move on them, then I don't think they get used. And I don't want them to be used. I mean, Carl Hess said, there's never been a successful revolution in the world. It's always just been a change in management. That's because there really hasn't been a revolution of the mind, anywhere. Maybe, I mean, I don't know, maybe some of the Eastern European countries coming out of communism, maybe Václav Havel is like a good idea of like a revolution of the mind, but still we haven't seen anything that came out of revolution that would be close to what we consider to be like a voluntary or libertarian society. It always reverts right back to let's give these guys the biggest guns, so that they can protect us, and then they end up not protecting us. So
Right.
It's a consciousness thing. It's a lack of consciousness, which is so pervasive here around the world, but especially here in America. And, going back to when I mentioned people asking you about getting the vaccine, it's just, to me, that's just such a low, it's like a caveman vibration. It's just such a low vibration and such a lack of consciousness and thinking and any ability to expand your view and even self-awareness, to step back and think to yourself, like, I should not be asking other people this question. This is not something you ask people. Like privacy, we have no more privacy. Privacy is totally out the fucking window. People posting selfies with the needle up their ass. It's like what this is like fucking 1984 on acid. This is horrible.
I saw some film clips of what's supposed to be colleges with the most decrepit, degenerate looking soy boy filth I've ever seen. And they're just like screaming, "F you fascists, shame, 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 shame." And that's the discourse, chanting at people and cussing and then leaving the room and clapping for yourself.
Evergreen.
There is no dialogue. And that's part of cancel culture too. It's like they don't get to talk. We're right. So no speech. They don't want free speech. I'm way more worried about that than I am the guns, because you lose free speech, you lose all of it. The gun thing, I feel like they make too much money selling guns. It's like abortion. They're all going to, one party will say they're going to get rid of them all the time. They're never going to, because it just makes too much money.
Right.
Like the Republicans have had the courts, the Congress, and the president, and didn't do anything with abortion. And the Democrats have had total control and didn't do anything about guns. It's just something they say to their extremities, but they're like, "What's the sales on that?" Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's not even just
every time there's
money.
a school shooting or something, they have more gun sales than ever because everybody thinks they're going to get rid of guns. They go out and buy more. And with abortions, it's the law of the land. You can get them in every single state, and they make them easier and easier. And it doesn't matter what they say. Like George Bush Jr. was in charge. They had the Supreme Court, that everything. It never came up, right? So it's those things. I'm like, the government is lying. They use these issues. It's not going to change. If you want to know what the government's going to do, you just look at what makes them more money. Like which industries is making a buck off this. Are they going to overreact to COVID? Yeah, because Big Pharma is a big lobby and they want to sell vaccines. So they'll push it on people. But this one is so invasive, right? Vaccinating people and physically making people wear 1 or 2 masks or whatever is too much for a lot of people. They're sick of it. And that's what's going to push us into secession. It's all the other abuses and the waste of money on wars and all that. That'll piss off people like us. But the mask thing, it's visible. Like, Sally's soccer mom or whatever can see it. And the most idiot lemming there is can see mask, no mask, right? And these are the same people that ran out and hoarded toilet paper. Like you can manipulate them easily, right? And so it's like, yeah, nobody rioted or whatever, but if someone did, the dam breaks, they all go the same direction. It'll go so fast. That's why you see these stupid riots like the LA riots and stuff. Like some people will do it and then it's just mob mentality, right? And with George Fentanyl, you can bet your ass there's going to be another mob riot, totally unrelated to police abuse, like actual police abuse, or which I don't agree that this was the case of that, but there are definitely a million examples you should be mad about that they're not mad about, and then they get mad about the one where the guy dies of a drug overdose. But it's like they're going to completely chump out over this under the theme of racial justice and hating police. But the reality is they're so frustrated from everything else, but they can't rebel against that. This is what Kaczynski was talking about. Like psychologically, like they can't allow themselves to go against the mask and all that. It breaks from their authoritarian mold. So like it has to be couched in a way that is socially acceptable by the system itself. So fighting racism, sexism, whatever, is something the system agrees with and pushes on you. So their innate sense to rebel from getting squeezed by everything else, from taxes to wearing masks or whatever, right? Their life sucks because of all these reasons, But they cannot channel that and get that out and riot unless they have some acceptable pretext like fighting racism. So when they riot, it's not really about George Floyd at all or any of these things. It's their angst that's been building up, their psychological angst from all this loss of autonomy and abuse they've had. And they blame it all on racism or whatever. They don't even know why they're doing it, right? They're just like racism, but they are right there ready to go, throw a brick through your Target window and steal stuff or whatever, because they have been inculcated in an entitlement attitude. They want their free gives and they're completely directionless. They just know that something's wrong. They're sad all the time. Like they're not having real relationships anymore. They don't understand the breakdown of the nuclear family and all the why this is happening and why they're so depressed. And a third of them are on psychotropic drugs and stuff. That's not normal for that large chunk of your society to have either depression or narcissistic disorders or all these mental illnesses that used to not be, right? And it's structured in such a pyramid, like the student culture is everyone's ADHD or something, because if they feel like if they fail on one test, on one quiz, on one thing, and don't get in the right school, they won't get the right job and their whole life is over. Every day there's one single wrong decision ruins the rest of their future. And it's structured like that on purpose. And so they are just stressed to the hilt all the time. And the reason everyone says they're virtue signaling or whatever, they are in a way, but really this is the only way they can channel out their angst is through the acceptable avenues. And the only acceptable avenues, the ones that have been beaten in their head all the time, to get the plebs to fight with each other, turn men and women against each other, blacks and whites against each other. They're get the middle, like Charles Barkley put it perfectly. They just take the middle class and scramble it up, get them all fighting with each other, and they're not asking, who's sitting there holding the fucking beater or the ants in the jar, who's shaking the jar, right? Who's shaking the jar? Get the middle class all scrambled up and fighting with each other. And they do. And then they go and blaming cops or blaming this. And it's that's not the problem. Okay. Why do we have such widespread fentanyl use in the first place in an opioid crisis? Another good rainbow frog is we might actually be getting out of Afghanistan finally. Although we'll see if we really leave or we just say, okay, combat troops are out and replace them with contractors or whatever, like they did Iraq. But that would be a big dent on the opioid crisis, is if we just stopped, harvesting and selling it, and when I say they, I mean the CIA, FedEx, the poppy farmers in Afghanistan are not bringing it to the United States. The U.S. is bringing it to the U.S. And that's how it's always been.
Yeah, I mean, they're not going to close Bagram Air Base. Biden's not going to do that. So we're there. We're in Afghanistan. We're not leaving. It's fucking window dressing. I want to believe we are, but Joe Biden's going to get us out of Afghanistan.
Yeah, they haven't told the truth yet. So
Joe Biden's going to stop smelling kids too. Come here, Sally. Come here.
The only thing that makes me think we might get out of Afghanistan is because they don't want them sitting there, since they're escalating things in Ukraine. We need a united front, which is scarier because they're like, whoa, are you really talking about war with Russia? Yeah. They're putting sanctions on each other right now. The sanctions that Russia did were hilarious because it doesn't really affect Americans. These are specific sanctions on just a great list of assholes: Christopher Wray, John Bolton, Susan Rice. It's James Woolsey's on there, who's responsible for the anthrax myths. Avril Haines is on there. The Attorney General, the FBI Director, the Director of National Intelligence. It's, these are big names.
Well, isn't that what the United States does? They'll they'll say, "Oh, we're putting sanctions on Venezuela," but they're not really sanctions. We're just sanctioning certain people in Venezuela.
Yeah, well, in Venezuela, it's I try to explain this to these socialists that are like, "Oh, the reason they're failing is because of the sanctions." But no. The problem in Venezuela is it's just competition between external and domestic exploitation. Either you're going to get exploited by giant American corporations, or you're going to get exploited by your own domestic Venezuelan leaders. And what Hugo Chavez did, because that's where it went downhill. They went from the richest country in South America to the poorest. Is he had all this capital investment from outside, building oil refineries and whatnot, and then he reneged on the deals, kicked them out, and replaced them all with Chavez loyalists. who didn't know what they were doing, by the way. And then he started doing price controls and things, which obviously lead to shortages. And they blame it all on the U.S. I was like, the U.S. put sanctions on these people because they're pissed off that their companies put millions of dollars in investments building these things for Venezuela and had the know-how and everything. And then once he had it all built and stuff, he just kicked them out. Right. So they hate that. But the bulk of the reason for all the poverty in Venezuela is because of Venezuela itself. I mean, there's even stricter sanctions on a place like Gaza Strip, and they're not starving and shortages or anything. There's even stricter sanctions on Iran or Syria, which is also fighting in the middle of a war, and they're still not as poor like as Venezuela. Like it's but a place like North Korea, there are zero sanctions on agricultural products, for example, to North Korea or Venezuela. Zero. But they don't have food. And they don't have the capital to buy the food from outside anyway, because central planning doesn't work. Socialism doesn't work.
Well, and the Venezuelan oil is so impure, it takes special facilities in order to be able to refine it. And I think really, like in the Western Hemisphere right now, I think the only ones that exist are like owned by the Kochs. So it's like, I mean, that's why they can't do anything with their oil now, because they basically shut down their own facilities.
And one of them died. They don't have the expertise to know how to do it themselves, though. And you got to question why. Why don't you refine your own oil, right? They don't have the know-how, the education, anything, because you need almost anything like that is a global effort, and you need free markets, and you need trade, and you need to obey contract laws and not just wait till people invest and do things and then throw them out and nationalize it and say it's ours. Like, that doesn't work. And I know the argument of like, well, you don't want United Fruit Company style corporate takeovers with the CIA and da-da-da-da. I'm like, yeah, that you're being a light switch brain. The choice is not either that or that, right? It's lots of, like Reed was saying, there's a lot of things in between nationalizing, going full socialist or even communist, and, you know, total foreign finance capitalists taking over your whole country, like East India Tea Company or something, you know, or United Brands. By the way, United Fruit renamed United Brands, renamed Chiquita. You know who started United Brands? Eli Black, Leon Black's father, the guy given $158 million to Epstein. Mm-hmm. And he got it from Minor Cooper Keith Railroad Industry, who got it from stinking Lincoln. So that's how close it is. You know, they're talking about 5 generations from Reconstruction, 4 or 5, depending on the age. That's not a long time. That's where these people got their money, stinking Lincoln. Like, that's where Jeffersonian democracy died. Like, any semblance of a libertarian-ish state would have been something like Virginia from 1776 until 1864 or 1865. And it all went to hell with Lincoln. And then it went further, deeper into hell under Grant. I mean, it's just, that's where lobbyists were born. And it's so pervasive that, because lobby comes from the hotel lobbies where Grant used to meet all these interest groups. It's so pervasive today that we just expect it. Like, oh yeah, the lobby, the such and such lobby, you know, the APAC lobby, this lobby. Like, what? Why are they there at all? Right? This is how they're not supposed to be a rent-a-government, but it is. And it's so normal that the idea of like, why don't you just call that legalized bribery? Like, get rid of all the lobbies. Nobody gets to donate. You know, that's not, we're supposed to vote based on representation, yada, yada, har, har. Right? That it's so dead and gone in the distance after Lincoln. Like, there isn't really a way to return. It is unfixable other than seceding. But that's pretty far in the distance too. I mean, there's not a single state that, yeah, it might be better than DC, but all our state governments are pretty bad. All of them.
Well, even Texas, and people are like, oh, well, Texas is going to secede and everything. There's a reason why Fort Hood is only right up the road from Austin, because as soon as Texas tries to secede, well, maybe tanks are going to start rolling down towards Austin right out of Fort Hood. Maybe.
Well,
that's frightening.
Yes, I say Texas Abbott was talking about how Gab is anti-Semitic. I mean, they're pretty woke, right? It's just they look okay compared to California or something, but they're pretty fucking far from Jefferson and what we had, right? Mm-hmm. Those days are gone. Like, it's very, very statist, and they're so bootlicker too. It says on the one hand, it's like, okay, you don't want to, most of you don't want to wear a mask or whatever, but like you'll bow and worship the cop and the ranger, and that just it's just another brand of authoritarianism.
Do you think though the one good thing to come out of it could mark the return of the rooftop Koreans?
Ooh.
Oh yeah, that's
something we're all best Korea is rooftop Korea.
Rooftop Koreans and the Kyle Rittenhouses, right? See, there was one 17-year-old boy that stood up to Antifa and BLM, and he shot a ginger child molester who had raped a set of twins and been in jail for 13 years, killed him. Then the guy that was beating him with a skateboard, I swear I wish he had said skate or die, shot him because he was assaulting him with a deadly weapon. And then a guy who's not supposed to have a gun is waving a pistol in his face, and he disarmed him in more than one way. And they acted like he's the Antichrist or something. Like, this is the coolest kid I've ever seen. I mean, he just shot three communists.
Can I adopt him?
He just shot three communists who were literally setting car lots on fire, and just the anarchy, the bad kind, just pointless violence, right? And he's like, get away from those cars. Like, he's really naive, or he's got nuts the size of grapefruit. And they're like, F you, whatever, and started chasing him. And he didn't shoot until someone shot a gun in the air or shot at him. It's hard to tell from the video. And then Rosenbaum grabbed him, and he says, okay, pow, into you. And then he just calmly starts jogging toward the cops to say, I shot someone. And he gets attacked again. He fell down. He shot that guy, and he blew the other guy's arm off, who had a gun pointed at him. And all the sympathy was for the one sole surviving communist, right? Like Kyle Rittenhouse was the meanie or whatever. This guy was literally like a Boy Scout, parents' wet dream kind of kid, volunteered for everything, cleaned up graffiti. Like, he's awesome. And they arrested him and put him in jail for a long time anyway. He finally got out, but like, there was one guy that did stand up to the mob with a gun and came out of it all right. So Kyle Rittenhouse is showing the way. Right. And it happened in Kenosha of all places.
Shows how dumb the bootlickers are, though, because like, who gets arrested? Nobody who's like, attacking unprovoked or whatever. They all get away with it.
Right.
It's like, didn't the people who were I forget what state it was, who was that husband and wife who were like standing outside their house with an AR-15? Didn't they get in trouble too?
They did. They did, and then they reversed it. But like, again, every single person that relied on the cops to protect their business is on smoldering right now and on fire, and had been looted. Everybody that rooftop Koreaned, everybody that just stood outside their business with a gun, they walked right past all those places.
Right.
If you want to protect this is the argument for guns right here. Like, what do you need an AR-15 for? After you saw the Antifa BLM riots, you're like, that, and they got mad. I mean, remember the video? The woman was mad at these Arabs are protecting their laundromat or whatever. And she's like, I'm going to come back here with my cousin. Why are you standing out there with a gun? It's like, you don't get to rob the beauty salon or whatever that was next to the thing. You're not entitled to come in here and steal stuff, you dumb bitch. But they didn't rely on the cops. They stood out there visibly with semi-automatic rifles and whatever else they had, and were like, move along. And the people like that you're talking about, I can't remember their names either, but they broke down their gate. They're on private property, and they'd already seen them set a 7-Eleven on fire and some other stuff. So they just stood out there with weapons saying, don't attack our house.
Oh, the
What's wrong with that? And they just acted like, oh my gosh, it's Mussolini, Hitler, and his wife, Eva Braun in the yard. It's like the mob that broke their gate and is trespassing right now, who absolutely would have torched that house had they not been defending it. That's who you should have been mad at, but you're not allowed to be mad at that.
Mark and Patricia McCloskey, that's their name.
That's right, it's McCloskey.
Yeah, I love that pink polo. I'm gonna wear that for Halloween this year.
There was so many memes of that dude.
Oh, fucking everything, dude.
Have you seen the Saving Private Property instead of Saving Private Ryan? It's just a silhouette of him with it.
I love too that the King had them speak at the convention too. We got the McCloskeys here. They are American patriots. They stood up to the tyranny of the woke mob, And here they are at the convention, and boy, we cleaned her up great. We gave her a great makeover. She could probably be in one of my beauty pageants.
I'll tell you another example of someone that stood up to the mob. So you had Rittenhouse and they had McCloskey's, and there was that statue of AP Hill that they were tearing down that fell on a protester and killed him.
Well, Eric mentioned Evergreen College. I mean, while that group was terrorizing basically that college for like 2 weeks, imagine if a couple vets who went to the college just went home armed up and would have came back
and just
they could have taken they could have just without even firing a shot, they could have taken that campus back. 2 or 3 guys could have taken that campus.
Oh yeah.
back.
Oh, like you said, Ryan, they're just little soy manlets, with pink hair and fucking fists up their ass. And yeah. Oh yeah. The sight of 2 hard dick veterans with
they don't even need to be in full battle rattle. I mean, they could just walk in there,
See what Ricky Manor did? Ricky Manor's sometimes part-time co-host with me. He's this bass black guy with a purple beard, and he has a Confederate flag in the back of his videos too. And Woke Mob gets confused. He's kind of a big man, and all he did, they were just nipping in and did it, and he just shouted. And they all and they don't know what to do. They can't call him racist because he's black. And that was their only weapon. Right. And so they just have to sit there. Whatever he says, they just nod and agree because they're scared to death.
Use their own weapon against
can't get him fired. He's black. That weapon's not going to work. And they don't know what to do. Like, their flag's about slavery. And he's like, which slave ship had a Confederate flag? Because none of them did. Yep. They all had. You could argue the Revolutionary War, the same thing. Like all the states had slaves at that point, and yet the Brits were going around getting rid of it. But that's not why we had a Revolutionary War. They were trying to preserve their union and keep the colonies, and we were trying to separate, which is the same as the Civil War. The level of education is really shocking and scaring the shit out of me. Like, as soon as the government guaranteed college loans, so anybody could go to college, they realized, hell, let's just let in whatever. It doesn't matter if they fail out or not. We can get money from all these people. And the quality of education just disappeared. When you see woke mobs just sitting there going, shame, shame, shame. It's like you're not even acting like a 8th grader. You don't deserve to be at college. Like, you're an American, you're in the richest country in the world. You have more privileges than anybody, or you used to until last year or whatever. You have many advantages over most, and you're out of college. You voluntarily go to class if you want to. You're probably not paying for it yourself, especially these kids. The last video I saw, they're at like a $70,000 a year college. I'm like, you're not paying for that. And I don't know why your parents are paying for it. Actually, no one's paying for it. You're going into massive debt with student debt. That's what's happening. But Department of Education, the 3rd largest corporation in the U.S., but they don't categorize it as that. But they're making so much money because they borrow money and then they loan it out at higher interest than what they borrowed it for and make money in the spread. And they do it over and over again. And they don't care that destroyed education, that they're under the theme of equality, or now they say equity, which is not even what that word means. But like, equitable. Everyone should go to college. Wrong. Everyone should not go to college. Like, everyone should be a rocket scientist. Wrong. Only people who can be a rocket scientist should be a rocket scientist. Like, it's not against equality to say no. Everybody doesn't get to have this thing. This thing has a meaning, right? And you have to earn a degree in whatever the hell you're getting a degree in, and that comes with mastering some sort of material or whatever. You cannot just hand them out, or it undermines the whole meaning of what a degree is, and then they're worthless. They don't get that. I'm like, wow, that's a quick education. Should have been told 1st grade. You know,
yeah.
Everybody. That's
I've talked about this
statement.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I've talked about this with Dave Smith, and I talked a little bit about it with Pete last time I had him on. Is everyone's worried about communism when these idiots are just tools for fascism? Because the workers don't own the means of production. This all enables the upper class and big corporations and colleges, and we are living in like a textbook fascist state right now, and all these idiots who are anti-fascist are facilitating it because they've been co-opted to support these big corporations because the big corporations will say they're anti-racism or whatever, so they'll line right up and push the cause right along.
I always love that workers should own to earn the means of production. Like they do. I mean, that's what owning a business is. Go own a business. Go start a business. You get to own. You aren't redistributing wealth. That's the other stupid name. Like wealth is not distributed. It's gained through labor. Okay. You don't just get money, whatever. But having private citizens own land and own property and set up businesses, that is private ownership. And what you really say by workers owning the means of production is they want the government to redistribute wealth to them. They want the lowest person on the ladder has an equal share with somebody with all the talent or whatever. Like the dishwasher should make as much as the chef. No, they shouldn't, right? Like unskilled labor should not be paid as much as skilled labor. And if you do that, you're going to lose all your skilled labor. Duh.
Yeah.
Well, it's all economics.
I want this. I deserve this. I've been working for 2 weeks. I think I should be the manager.
It's all economics. You said they can own the means of production by starting their own business, but then they're going to have to compete. If they have the government do it for them and they use a government monopoly, well, then they have a monopoly, and the monopoly is not going to fail immediately. I mean, eventually it's going to fail, but if you have a monopoly on a service, well, then you don't have to compete.
Yeah,
so they don't have
Lockheed Martin.
to work. Yeah, they don't have to work at all. And that's what they want. They don't want to work. They don't want to put any effort in. And the whole fascism thing in this country is we've been taught when we think of fascism, we're thinking culturally, we're thinking of
goose steps.
Yeah, goose step. We're not thinking economics.
Right.
And economic fascism is as bad as socialism. So why, as the workers owning the means of production, it's just they don't, because everything has been socialism now has a lot of people, when they talk about socialism, they don't talk about it economically. They don't talk about fascism economically. It all has to be cultural.
Right.
And then, but when the economics dies, when nobody is economically literate, then we're all in for a world of pain.
Ted Kaczynski gave the example of a ship. Like, why can't we all be the captain or the navigator? Because you don't know how to navigate. That's why. And you're going to just run into icebergs. But I used to give the example of an airplane. Like, well, shouldn't we all get take turns being the pilot or something? He's the only one that's, practiced and become a pilot and understands the plane and all. But, equality or something. It'll be better for diversity if we all take turns flying the plane, which would mean the plane's immediately going to crash. But that example I used to give, and I made that silly on purpose to try to drive the point home that you can't just have workers own stuff that don't know about the business or whatever. But now this is a real thing through the magic of diversity, since only 7% of pilots are female and some percent are minorities. They're just going to even that all out. And so now they're just going to hire more women and more minorities, and to hell with merit or anything else. They just need it to be even for the sake of it, right? It's got to be even by outcome. The reason there aren't more female pilots or minorities is not because of prejudice. It's not because of that they can't do it or whatever. They're not interested in doing it. They're not doing it. It doesn't matter. It's a very specific type of job. The odds of every single occupation having exactly even number percentages of all the different minorities and like you could keep breaking it down. How many are left-handed? How many have green eyes? How many this? How many that? Like, it doesn't end. All right. But what you look like has nothing to do with how well you can fly a plane, right? Maybe your alcohol tolerance, if you're flying Delta or United, maybe that's a factor in. But like, I think what it is it's almost automated now anyway, so it doesn't matter who flies or whatever. But man, we could literally have some planes crashing into the ground because they just needed to have, the left-handed Eskimo handicapped woman or whatever flying the plane because there weren't enough of them doing it or something. And this is a real thing. This is not, I'm not making this up to be funny. They are going to fire 50% of their workforce and hire women and minorities just cause. And that's prejudice and racist and sexist to the men and to whites or whoever it is that's flying planes right now. Whatever category it is currently, they're going to lose jobs or never get them in the first place because they don't belong to the right biological category. Of course, I guess they could just self-identify. That might be the way around it.
You could change it.
I am
mid-flight. Change it mid-flight.
I knew
exactly.
I knew we were really fucked remember when United had that thing where they were trying to force a 2-year-old to wear a mask, and the video came out and it's crying. And I said it would, and I put on Twitter, I said it would be a real shame if a bunch of United planes were, just set on fire on the tarmac. And I had libertarians attacking me and agorists too, you fuckers, being like, oh, well, then maybe somebody should shoot you. It's like, did you not just see what happened?
Attack a 2-year-old?
Is that not a violation of your precious non-aggression principle? What they were doing? I mean, because it's a private company, that's not a violation?
Right.
Fuck. Dude,
they kicked off,
and you wonder why libertarianism.
But it's not a private company. It's not really a private company, because it's like, oh, you want these government subsidies? Then you got to obey our rules. Oh, you want us to pay? Like, we're going to say your plane has to only have X number of people on it because they have to be spaced apart because of COVID. But don't worry, we're going to pay for the empty seats from the state. Well, now they have to obey the state, because if they don't obey the state, they don't get the state regulations force them to have to behave a certain way. And then if they don't behave that way, they don't get the money from the state and they're going to go out of business. So it's like, if you got rid of the state, an airline company could actually say, you know what, we're not having masks. But they can't really realistically make that decision, because any airline that says we're getting rid of masks or whatever is going to lose all their government privileges. And you cannot exist in competition with others that have government privileges when you don't. Right. So you got to get rid of them all. You got to get rid of all that. Then so I guarantee you there'd be at least one company saying we're not having masks, because there's plenty of people that don't want to wear a mask, especially on an international flight, 10 hours, whatever. But I was just on Asiana and didn't wear a mask, and they just, because they didn't enforce it like I was supposed to. I wore one that said dehumanize on the plane, took it off, and went to sleep. Right. And they didn't care. But when the woman next to me was like, she was not next to me, she was in then like 3 rows over, but she came over to the row in front of me so she could take pictures out the window and stuff, but she didn't have a window seat, so they made her go back. And then she put her feet up in the aisle, like she's laying down, and put her nasty feet in the aisle, and they came and put her feet down, and she got all uppity in their face, and they said, these are Koreans, don't put up with shit. They're like, this is not your house. This is an airplane. Like, sit in a chair. We don't care if you lay across the 3 empty seats, whatever, but you can't have your feet in the aisle because other people are using that aisle, whatever.
Was that Rooftop Airlines?
I loved it, man. They were like, this is not your head. They're like, I paid for this ticket. The woman's getting on. She's like, so did everybody else. And they need to be able to move up and down the aisle of the bathroom and stuff, and you get your feet in the way. Like, this is not your home. It was hilarious.
They had the feet in the aisle. Was Hunter Biden there on his knees?
Oh, damn.
Where's Hunter? Hunter, Daddy's taking a shower. Come shower with me, Hunter.
Or Prince Andrew.
Where's
He's
Hunter?
into feet, apparently.
I want to smell some hair, and I want to do some crack and Parmesan cheese with Hunter. Because, well, listen, Ryan. I'm serious, man. Listen, man. This is about the soul of Amtrak. Okay, the soul of Amtrak. Did I talk about my dead wife yet? Did I talk about my dead son yet? Kamala Harris is a good vice president. She's a good president. Good president. Yeah, corn pop.
They collected $4 million on Beau Biden's. They made money off their dead kid.
Beau Biden. My dad died of the same cancer that Beau Biden had, glioblastoma, and the cancer fucking racket industrial complex is one of the most disgusting, dehumanizing, sickening things. You know, all these people want you to get involved in their pet projects and all that, and the Biden use of it was particularly grotesque.
$4 million, not a dime spent on research.
No,
they just used it to aggrandize the Democratic Party.
We bought palm cheese with it.
And then Hunter marries the widow.
I'm serious, man. I'm serious. Where's Hunter? Come shower. Come shower with Daddy.
For those who don't know, the Parmesan cheese reference is Hunter like so cracked out of his mind, he's looking through the rug and for crack and found some Parmesan cheese and was smoking the cheese. Thinking
I wanted
more drugs.
Listen, Ryan, I'm serious, man. I wanted to have spaghetti night, and I couldn't get any Parmesan or Reggiano because Hunter smoked it.
I love the facial expression you're doing.
I'm serious, man. There are little black kids in the pool and corn pop with a chain, and they play with the hair on my legs.
I had that hair on my hairy legs.
I'm serious, man. I don't want my kids in a racial jungle. Kamala Harris. I did Trump for 6 years. Mike and I we're working on our Biden. So I'm focus grouping with you guys. How is it?
It's good. I'm impressed so far.
It's funny and scary at the same time because he actually said that shit.
Oh, it's fucking frightening.
It's frightening. George Bush Jr., strategic. that was bad. And, even before that, remember how the media lost his fucking mind because Dan Quayle misspelled potato? Y'all don't remember that. Pete, you remember that?
Yeah, I remember that.
I remember that.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, it was like potato had an E on it or whatever. And,
sorry, that's wrong.
Then I think it was Rogan or somebody had a joke about this. It might have been Sam Tripoli. He's like, there's some people in the back with their arms crossed and like, nah, I ain't satisfied. We can go dumber. And so then they got Bush Jr. Then you had Sarah Palin. And you're like, that's rock bottom, right? You can't. I see Russia from my window. Then they're like, no. Joe Biden. Yeah. Joe Biden. The dog did it.
What's your name? Sally? No serious boyfriends till you're 30. Now come here and give Uncle Joe a tongue bath.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's sickening.
The red hair speech is like, what, dude? He's in like a lifeguard chair.
Yeah.
Surrounded by black children like he's the fucking king. It's just such bad optics. And he's talking about what he was doing with his speech about I was in the pool and they played with my leg hairs. It was him saying, see, I even got in the same water as black people and I let him touch my hair. He's all proud of himself for just normal shit. Right.
Right. I miss Strom Thurmond was a good guy. Strom Thurmond's a good friend of mine. We came in the Senate together in 1912. A good friend of mine.
I did see a speech on C-SPAN where Robert Byrd just grilled Donald Rumsfeld and was awesome. But of course, the retort was Byrd used to be in the Klan, which I guess a long time ago he was in the Klan. I was like, what's that got to do with what he said to Rumsfeld about the Iraq War? Like, even the Klansman looks like the good guy compared to Rumsfeld. That's not what I saw. Like, even this weirdo is better than this guy.
Nothing tops Cynthia McKinney's dressing down at Rumsfeld. Now, who had the contracts? That's some of the best most
Dana
based.
Rohrabakh's asking about Afghanistan, and they asked about American casualties, and they didn't know how many there were.
Right.
That was a pretty good, solid moment. Dana sucks on a lot of other things, but that was a nice moment for him.
Dana, he's a big fan of Russia. He's a good friend with Putin. Very nice guy. Gave him a nice medal. Great guy.
So, Ryan, have you heard about this project that the Pentagon has been working on to implant microchips to sense COVID-19? Have you heard about that at all? Or
I've seen that floating around, VK. It's just, I'm like, you do them first. Let's chip up Bill Gates, the guy that's meeting Jeffrey Epstein 9 times after Epstein had been arrested for raping children. Meets him in Seattle, went to the rape mansions, and then he's like, I don't have any business deals with him. I'm like, well, that just shot yourself in the foot, because if you don't have any business deals with him, why are you meeting him at all? It's only one reason to meet Epstein in person.
So, Pete, have you done any more research on that, or do you know anything deeper about that microchip stuff? Or
it just sounds like stuff that I've been hearing forever. It's like, have you seen the meme going around where it's like a jar filled with coins, and it's like every time Alex Jones was right.
Oh yeah,
like all this stuff that Alex Jones was talking about that was like completely insane. And I know he's controlled opposition, don't get me wrong, but a lot of what he puts out, it's just a perfect limited hangout. There's so much of stuff that he puts out is right. And I mean, he's talked about stuff like that forever. And I've known about that forever. So
he's also said we're all going to be living in bunkers in New Zealand and Y2K is going to kill us all and a whole bunch of things that were wrong. But then what he'll do is he'll be like the Chacoms. And then when China does anything bad, which it's China, right? They're like, see, Alex called it. Really? I mean, because the Chi-Coms or whatever.
The Chi-Coms are putting fluoride in the crab rangoons. Infowars.com.
He said Sandy Hook was all crisis actors. He said a lot of dumb shit. But
Well, that's the controlled.
Even Alex is more accurate than the mainstream media,
right?
But that's like setting the bar all the way on the floor and jumping over it.
Yeah, that's what
Alex Jones is right more than them.
I was talking to Justin O'Donnell and Joe Evans the other day, and Justin O'Donnell was saying that, Alex Jones was right. And I actually said exactly what you said. Like, well, he wasn't right. It's just the mainstream media is so wrong that it makes him look okay. But Eric, give us an Alex Jones opinion on I don't know if you've heard about it, but have you heard about the microchips at all?
I've heard a lot about the microchips. First of all, if you're going to have good chips, you got to have good salsa. Okay, so DARPA's developing the salsa, folks. You wouldn't believe it right now. They're teaming up with Elon Musk and the Deep State and the Trilateral Commission and the Aspen Institute and the Bilderbergers and the Bohemian Grove and NATO, and they got this sludge that you're going to take it and you're going to want to wear 50 masks. Okay, you're going to be so docile and dumbed down you want to wear 50 masks. But the chips I've been talking about the chips for a long time, folks. Okay, I've been doing 15, 16, 20, 48, 75-hour days, folks. The chips are real. The DARPA chips are real. I'm so tired of fighting. They're evil. They're just so evil. Larry Silverstein said, pull my finger, folks. Infowars.com. No, everyone, look, people would say Alex is batshit talking about chips and microchips, and this is out of DARPA. So, I mean, this is what DARPA does, man. They work on this shit. And by the time it hits the public, they've already been working on it for 10, 15, 20 years, whatever, how long it's been in development. And that's why Hollywood exists. Hollywood exists to be an air balloon of this shit, to percolate it into the public consciousness. And then when they roll it out, it's like, oh, but that's actually a good idea because virus bad. And if we have a chip that goes under our skin to detect virus, that good, right? Because virus bad, chip good. Okay, let's take the chip. So, yeah. That's where we're at, folks. It's very real. 1980. The answer to 1984 is 1776. Infowars.com. Buy my dick pills.
Oh my God. I went to look at my Gay Frogs t-shirt description where I had that long rant about, and it's gone. They removed it. It sucks. I was going to do my Alex Jones thing too, but my spiel has been removed from the t-shirt company.
Oh, man.
It was great too. It was all like, oh, I can't do it. I was all Luciferian. It's just all the crap he says in a row.
Folks.
And apparently they removed it. It sucks. That was my product description.
Ryan, if we elect Hillary Clinton, we're looking at 1,000 years of darkness, folks. I can't even tell you how evil of a demon she is. She's like when Kamala Harris queefs, it's pure sulfur. All right, folks, I got the documents on this.
Where is any of that wrong?
You scum.
That's the scary part.
Emmerich, he's still the soul of the age, though. You got to love Alex Jones. He's going on all these podcasts and comedian shows and just getting fucking blasted, and talking about my family's high German. My father was approached by paperclip. He was part of the resistance, and I remember the machine elves, and they had this whole plan to put the fluoride in the toothpaste going back to the founding of our country, folks. Thomas Paine wrote about this, okay, when he wrote Common Sense, and he wrote Brave New World with Huxley. It's all been there, folks. I've been talking about this forever. Okay, it's all there. Joe Rogan's good sometimes. Sometimes he's bad. Sometimes he's good. Sometimes we get a steak. We go to the gun range. But Infowars.com, and go in there right now and type in Ryan Dawson, get 20% off the new Patriot Shield Brain Boost, Nation Iodine Silver.
Have you ever interacted with him, Ryan, with Alex Jones, or?
He banned me off his YouTube and everything else, and no. I've had people go interact on it and like trigger him with my name before. I'm really pissed that they removed my Gay Frogs at Jonestown description. Sucks. I didn't have that copied anywhere. I really didn't think that was going to get removed. Every time I come on, I've been newly found something I've been showed from. It really sucks. It was awesome. I used to read that to people. That was my Jonestown thing.
Did you see
my
Dawson?
favorite was the interdimensional demon elves that were communicating through DMT with the Nazis to build a super space gate to release the devil back onto Earth. But Alex Jones's family personally went and stopped it with commandos or whatever, super secret stuff nobody could ever know.
This is deep stuff here, John. I could get in so much trouble. Eddie Bravo was talking about this, folks. They're going to come after first. They're going to come for Eddie Bravo, then they're going to come for you. This is scary stuff. It's wild stuff here, folks. Deep State's coming at me. They're shutting all me down. They're shutting everything down. And it's the Chi-Coms. The Chi-Coms did 9/11. Okay,
they're attacking babies.
They're eating the babies. These guys are so evil at Bohemian Grove. They use the bones of the babies to pick their teeth after they eat them. I love the taste of that baby plasma. I love that taste. Hillary's there.
She's hot bowl of chili.
She's at Planned Parenthood drinking baby smoothies, folks. They're doing the baby smoothies. I'm so tired of their evil. I'm tired of their evil. Remember when he cried? Remember that video, Ryan?
Yeah.
I'm so tired of documenting their evil.
Yep.
I don't know, guys.
Character.
Yeah, it's Pete Clown.
I have a personal dislike for him because people are like, he's funny, he's entertaining. I'm like, yeah, but he almost single-handedly hijacked the adult narrative on September 11th and turned it into just fucking crap. And he does that to things. They're doing it with Jeffrey Epstein's work right now. That people talk about he's still alive and Maxwell's not really in jail. There's tunnels and it's the QAnon people this time.
The dumbs, the dumbs, deep underground military base. That's real, folks.
Stupid, you know.
Fucking retarded Q shit.
Trump is still the perfect proof that Trump is still president is the fact that there are still kids in cages on the southern border.
So
That's
true.
where with Obama.
So true, Peter. Who built the cages, Joe? Who built the cages? Okay. Who built
it was a great one-liner. Justin O'Donnell the other night, he said, or I think it was Justin O'Donnell said it. Biden's building the wall so that Trump can't run on it next time.
That's awesome. We're gonna have Hunter's gonna run construction on the wall, and we're gonna build it with Amtrak. We're gonna build back better, and we're gonna smell Amtrak. I'm from Amtrak, Pennsylvania, Scranton. Okay,
It's gonna be a green wall.
Green Scranton wall with AOC, Kamala.
You know what's funny is
apparently people are infrastructure now.
Yeah. Oh my God. What's funny is we were talking about earlier with how it's not about how competent you are or what your views are. It's just what ethnicity or gender you are. That meme that was going around for months before the election, it was like the bomber with the BLM and the rainbow flag on it. Like that's literally what we have now. I mean, we have the same government, but it's just with, like Biden posted a picture of his warmonger cabinet and how diverse it was. Like, this is the U.S. military now. And then like Raytheon putting out ads on how they have transgender employees. It's just like, I mean, it's literally the meme in real life.
His cabinet is 73% Jewish. So a lot of diversity between different Jewish groups, I guess. It's just like, that's not diverse at all.
Build back better.
Build back better.
Build back better. Kamala.
Make America great. Sloganeering. They literally have animal mascots with a jackass and an elephant. It's sports teams.
It's incredible. It's team baseball, folks.
You ever go back and read addresses or letters or things from real presidents? You know, you ever just go back and just read things written by Washington or Coolidge or what, and it's so different. Then you read stuff from Bush or Trump or Clinton, and you're just, the quality is just, you don't even have to go that far back. Like speeches from
Carter,
John F. Kennedy or something, it sounds like a president, at least. But man, from television on, which is LBJ to now, it just
and then now read Trump's just like, we need wall. We go from ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country too. We need wall. We need wall. That's it. It sums it all up. That's Reed and I's canned response to pretty much everything when someone comes at you or
with a gotcha question. That's how you answer.
Someone's triggered you. You just go, we need wall.
Well, I used to watch the press conferences with Kelly McEnany with popcorn, like, oh yeah, because it's like Jerry Springer shit. It's they're coming in with the dumbest fucking and easily anticipated questions, all race baiting nonsense or whatever, and she's just smackdown, and it's so what do? They ban our Twitter, but she just would wreck these woke reporters, and it was hilarious, and they never stopped. It didn't matter. They were just all proud of themselves and going to ask the same stupid baited questions anyway. But whether it was Trump or Obama, it was always this silly criticism They weren't mad at Obama for his wars and destroying Libya and sending refugees into Europe and his, the largest wealth transfer in the history of the world with banker bailouts and none of that. It was, he's a secret Muslim and I don't think he has a birth certificate.
Right.
And then with Trump, it wasn't any of the real stupid shit he did, giving the Golan Heights to Israel. And all that. It was, identitarian nonsense. So all the criticism is in this little safe space. That doesn't mean anything anyway. And none of the real criticism gets out, especially the anti-war voice. They don't get a platform, right? The anti-Zionist voice, that doesn't get a platform. Like all these major things that matter aren't discussed at all. They want to keep it in this nonsensical identitarian bullshit or whatever of just monkeys throwing poo. That's what the discourse looks like. Just,
Really?
ooh, ah. I'm waiting for someone to filibuster, just get up there and go, ooh, ooh, ah, ah. That's about what college campuses are right now, going, shame, 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 shame. Just like Jones did it. He said, you're not normal. You're just like, that's what you're doing. Oh, Generation Z is so stupid.
Yeah,
and they just don't know what else. They're like, what could gravitate? What kind of no shit Sherlock? Everyone already agrees on this issue. Could we gravitate to a dead horse we could kick some more, right? Like fighting racism. No shit. Everybody agrees already, right? And yet you would think, well, what about corporate bailouts or pointless wars? That seems to be something most people would agree are dumb and wrong. No, you can't even bring it up.
Right.
That's not sexy. It doesn't. I didn't hear race. It's like corporate bailout. I didn't hear race. It's not about race every fucking time. They're like, they've got a mental problem with this race stuff. They are so obsessed. You turn on the TV in the U.S. today, is what I hear. It's racial this, racial that. Some cop shot somebody because she thought her taser was a gun or whatever. I'm like, you don't belong on the police force or even holding such weapons if you're that stupid.
Right.
Right. Like you shouldn't have those toys. Right. You're not ready for that. Yeah. You're a trained officer. How the fuck do you mistake a yellow taser or whatever and a gun? Oh, Jesus Christ. These people. And now someone's dead. But are they going to get mad at police and get rid of red flag laws and do all the perform? No. They're going to go rob Louis Vuitton and set car lots on fire.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, last year when the whole George Floyd thing happened, regardless of
fentanyl.
Yeah, regardless of the circumstance of that was a great opportunity to take on the cops and get some major reforms. But you're right. Nobody gave a shit about any of the structural problems. It was all
qualified immunity. Nothing
changed.
Literally
nothing changed.
Nope. Let's go burn a building down. Let's burn back better. Things
did change. People started liking the police even more because they're not dumb. They allow these riots to happen and they just sit on their thumbs. They don't care unless you're attacking a government building. They're not going to show up because they don't work for us. They work for the state. They're road pirates that generate revenue for the state. That's their real job.
Yeah.
First police ever created were to catch runaway slaves. I mean, they don't have a great history, but anyway, there was a change because the riots happen and then people go to daddy government more. And so please protect us or whatever. We need more policing. We need to refund the police. But cops did not protect any businesses. Business owners with guns protected them themselves. That's the reality of the situation. The media didn't tell you to spoon feed that to people. And if the media doesn't spoon feed it to people, 98% of people won't think on their own. The TV said, I wish there were more police. That would stop it. Really? It's not because we don't have police. It's because the cops we have aren't doing anything because they don't care if your store gets robbed or you get looted. It's not their job.
There are videos of them putting fucking bricks out on the streets.
Somebody was doing that. Yeah.
It wasn't even just like lack of action. It was action in the direction of antagonism. You could
take out a Portland mob with 5 healthy men. I mean, they're so beta and pathetic. I've thought about flying down there and just whooping ass. That was like, because I could beat up a whole crowd of Portland people. Just like,
You got to be
It's
dressed
just like,
as Ric Flair,
what the
though.
fuck,
You
man?
do
They're
it,
out there
Ryan.
shooting fireworks and just being a bunch of fucking ass clowns, and they need a spanking. Like they need a dad. A father needs to go out there and get your ass to bed. Whatever.
Yeah,
Because they're just sitting there,
just a good ass
dressed up
whooping.
in fucking black uniforms and throwing shit at people's windows and stuff. And sometimes you just need a running clothesline. You know, I would pay Vince McMahon, like that'd be the best commercial ever if they had like an Antifa riot and a bunch of pro wrestlers who went out there and just started picking people up and power bombing them and suplexing them all different directions. That'd be the most satisfying, like chair shot, ka-chunk, and just wipe out the whole mob. Just get Braun Strowman out there with a steel chair. Maybe roll out the Undertaker and have Ric Flair just going woo woo chop, you know, just knocking out Antifa people left and right. It'd be a perfect WWE commercial.
I could come out of retirement from the Baja, Ryan. I spend half the year in the Baja. I'm an hour from pavement, and excuse me, an hour from electricity. I'll go out there and lay some smackdown on those little soy boys. We don't got no soy in Minnesota. Wisconsin ain't got no soy.
Jesse the Body, the Brain, the Governor. And Glenn Jacob is now the mayor of Knox County. It's awesome. Maybe that's what we should do. Just have more pro wrestling.
Run more
libertarians
wrestlers,
run
man.
and
Fuck
win.
yeah. Dude, I want The Rock to run in 24. I am fucking here for that. Dude.
I'd rather have Kane.
Let's do. Yeah, that'd be pretty based.
Kane's actually an active mayor and the only libertarian in office, like a real libertarian that actually won and got in office. But he didn't win because he's libertarian. He won because he was a WWE wrestler and everybody loved him. Yeah.
Nobody
he had that WWE money behind him too.
Donald Trump can't out-smat talk me because I'm a real wrestler. He's a phony. He's a phony. He can't out-smat talk me.
How satisfying would it be if they had somebody dress up like Nancy Pelosi and Kane just grabbed her and chokeslammed her through a table? Like,
smacks you right into her fridge.
Like if wrestling wants to get their fan base back, they need to just take on this woke mob.
Get the Pelosi fridge and put her head in it and just smash it a bunch of times. How's that ice cream taste, Nancy? How's the ice cream? Is that soy ice cream?
That's why people love wrestling in the 80s. It was just pure testosterone because it's really satisfying for some, enemy of the day to just get their comeuppance, just like, here, let me have a fucking python bite you on the arm and then I'm going to throw you through a table that's set on fire and hit you with a garbage can in the head. It's just like, love it. They would never watch that now. They're too fucking limp.
It's a hate crime to watch wrestling now, dude.
Oh, of course it would be. Yeah, that's what would do it for me if they went after pro wrestling. I'm like, no, guns, you start going after wrestling.
So Ryan, if Michael Heiss can't take over the Libertarian Party with the Mises Caucus, are you going to start the Jefferson Davis Caucus and run on secession? And I mean, is there a plan there?
I don't know. I don't even live in the U.S. So. I'd probably get more votes. So. I don't know. Like it's I like how the Mises Institute and Abbeville and those guys are all starting to communicate with each other, right? And get more based. I like that. I like that Libertarian Institute has grown. It used to be Scott Horton, right? And then maybe Lou Rockwell, Tom Woods and stuff, but now we're getting all these Chad motherfuckers, right? And their audience was building, and then they get, deranked on Google, kicked off YouTube, thrown off Twitter. So it's like every time we have this push up, right? Pete was kicked off Twitter. I was kicked off Twitter a lot. We can't get our head above the water, right? Everything's stacked against us the way it is. But I think it sucks. But the only way we're going to fix things, we can't run and win right now. We have to fix alternative media first. That's why I'm pushing PeerTube, VK, get the fuck off Patreon, all that. Because I can see down the road, if we don't do this, it's Stockholm syndrome. Like we've got to be able to live stream at a place that can't kick us off. We have to have a payment processor like Entropy or something like that. We have to have these things set up first so we can communicate with people. So there's a place where they can come and get that news, right? But we'll win once we have that because our message is so much better.
Yeah.
It's just if every time there's an even playing field for even a moment, we win. every time when Ron Paul got this talk on television, it resonated, right? When somebody, says a libertarian ideal, they don't even have to call it that. It works. People recognize it. It's just we never get a fair shake. We're not allowed on television. We're not allowed on any of the alternative platforms right now, and BitChute's been taken over by QAnon people, and it's so PeerTube and VK and Telegram and things like that is where it's at. And I feel like a big chunk of our focus has to be on building up real alt tech with free market solutions, because the government is not going to come in and enforce antitrust laws or any of these fantasies, right? They love big tech. They pay them. Google lobbies heavily. The solution is not going to come from government. It's going to come from us and free markets. So if we build that up, our message will win. But the problem with our message isn't the message, it's people aren't hearing the message. Right. There's this, once someone stumbles upon and starts listening to Tom Woods or whatever, or Mance Raider, then they're like, man, I love this podcast, and they start listening to it all the time. They go listen to 4 or 5 in a row. I know personally people like, I was on a show of whoever, and then my fans go in there and be like, I love the whoever the heck it was, and I've been listening to them all day. I go, yep, it's there. They're like, I didn't know this was here, right?
Yeah.
I was like, oh, yeah, it's there.
No, I've had that with, none of my followers knew who you were. They didn't know who Kerry Wedler was. They didn't know, who's the other guy they didn't know. They didn't, I think they knew Scott Horton, Dave Smith, and Pete, and they didn't know like anybody else. And I was like, because there are a lot of new people who find Dave, because Dave's real popular right now, and they don't know about any of the people from the past.
Well, he's still on YouTube, and he's still on Twitter. Right. Once they yank that, they won't know him either. Right. They don't know me. Carrie was banned on a bunch of stuff. She's been on my show, and she used to date Adam Kokesh. They used to be a couple. Right. And he's an anarchist. He's not a libertarian. He keeps calling himself a libertarian, but he's an anarchist. But whatever. Hates the state, all that. Had a popular show. Then he did some idiot stuff and ended up in jail twice. Right. And I'm like, that's something else we can't have. We can't have popular representatives going out and doing something stupid and getting thrown in jail. Because if you're in jail, you can't do anything, right? I disagree with the reasons. I was the first person to interview him when he got out of jail. I defended him the whole time, but I'm like, please stop doing stunts. You're making it easy for him. That's not the way. We got to build up alt tech. That is owning the media. You've seen the model. If you want a subversive nation, just take over its media, and within 20 years, you have everything. Right. That is the fourth estate, or whatever you want to call it. And we don't have a media right now. And it's not CNN and Fox. It's like the whole thing is team authoritarian warmongering. Is that they all have the same message. All of them said too big to fail. All of them said you pick a thing. They're all on the same side when it comes to anything important. Right. But, just having internet radio and stuff ain't enough, because it's almost word of mouth. So I'm going to spend the rest of my life pushing PeerTube and building these things up, because we got to have something to pass on. I don't think it's fixable within our lifetime, really. Unless they keep boiling the frog too fast and there really is a secession movement. That's the only way I see out of it in the U.S. Now, other places I have more hopeful for. Like I really love seeing what like South Korea and Singapore did from coming from the poorest countries in the world to top level. South Korea is the 11th most wealthy nation right now. They got their shit together. They put their last 4 presidents in prison for corruption. That's Chad as fuck. And the reason is because the pressure of North Korea made them not be apathetic and lazy, and they got involved in politics because they had a real threat right above them, and they saw all the corruption and they did something about it. So it is possible. And that's not some dinky little nation. That's, 65 million people. That's a big thing. They got their shit together. As recently as the 80s, they were like the 139th poorest country on earth. Now they are the 11th wealthiest. Yeah. Yeah. So, Pete, it seems like the general public is getting dumber, but the people who want to know truth are more radicalized now. Have you seen that, or what's your opinion on that?
Yeah. Well, obviously, the people are getting dumber. They could have done a little bit of research in the last year and found out that all of this, everything they were being told about COVID-19 was just at best guesswork, at worst was nefarious. So those of us who were out there trying to preach the truth found out that it's kind of hard to preach the truth to people who are idiots. So we started talking about trying to control the narrative, making, even to the point where making a new narrative, and it doesn't have to exist in reality. I mean, you can go back to the Declaration of Independence, talk about we hold these truths to be self-evident, endowed by our creator, which none of that can be proven. I mean, these truths are self-evident. Okay, great. Prove it. I can't. Endowed by our creator. Okay, prove it. No, we can't. And seeing if you can try to pull some people back with that. And yeah, I mean, we're at a post-truth world. And, it's probably like the hardest fight of our life. I mean, I don't see that gigantic swath of people who are morons, who are basically brain dead, waking up en masse. So you're going to have to, if you think that numbers are important, you're just going to have to peel some off and do the best you can. And they're going to do, like, Ryan's been talking about, they're going to do their best to make sure that the voices that can actually do that get silenced. And that's the future we have now. I mean, it's a fight. You can either fight or you can run and hide. And I know that a lot of people are choosing to run and hide, and God bless them. And I think that they should shut the fuck up about those of us who were deciding to stay and fight.
Yeah, and the other thing is they're these fucking purists who, they don't even like you. Some of them don't like me. Like they we're not woke enough or pure enough.
Well, I mean, I'm not for trans rights. Mm-hmm. I'm never going to be for trans rights because that's positive rights. And positive rights are always going to, if you demand positive rights, you're going to grow a government. You're going to grow a government.
Human rights. There's no gay right, black right, white right, trans right. You have all have the same rights. As Ron Paul said, you get rights. They're not based on your sexual orientation or your invented gender. Like transgender is not a thing. He's a man pretending to be a woman or a woman pretending to be a man. They don't exist. And so you can't have rights based on something that you made up. And it's just, there's something wrong with someone that's like, I want to force you to change your pronouns or this or that, right? It's part of that authoritarian mindset. I saw on the airplane some kid with like a cutoff shirt and purple hair and a girl with nose rings and all this stuff on. And I was laughing to myself because I was thinking they're probably the most judgmental people on the plane. And I was just thinking in my head, because back in the day, that would be the rebellious one, the one with purple hair in the 80s. But now they are wearing a cutoff and all the rings, purple. And they started bitching at people and stuff right away. And I was like, yep, the most judgmental people on the plane. They dress outrageously on purpose to provoke a reaction just because they want to exercise that Karen browbeating mentality, finger waving, And it just disgusts me. But I feel like everyone's kind of waiting for someone else to start it, but they're all willing to go. And that's why I think the censorship stuff, I've been dealing with that a long time, getting kicked off things, old school, 2005, thrown off AOL, MySpace, got my YouTube deleted in 2008. But then I see regular, very milquetoast people getting banned on YouTube right now. Like James Corbett, he had a huge following, been on 14 years or something like that. And they just erased it all. 500,000 followers, whatever. I think they're afraid because why wouldn't you allow that on or whatever, right? They must realize that we really do have an impact and an ability to beat them, or they wouldn't have to freak out the way they're freaking out. They are censoring anybody for anything because they are scared to death of losing power. Because if they were to allow a real alternative media like YouTube could have been, then everything they've built up for generations and these billionaires of swallowing up televised media is gone, because somebody can, for free, reach 500,000 people just like that from a chair in their house. like James could do or Atwood could do or I could have done if I hadn't been banned so many fucking times, right? And so collectively, the reason we can win, even though they have all this money and everything, is it costs way less to tell the truth than it does to lie. You have to reinforce lies every day or they don't work. We can call people stupid and sheep and all that, and a lot of them are, but you turn that TV off for even a week and the spell is gone, right? It's like Cable Guy, you know, they broke the satellite dish or whatever and everyone started going outside and stuff, but it's a real thing. Like if you can get someone away from their TV for a while, the fear drip isn't there, right? That's what makes people stupid, is being afraid, right? The thinking stops when you show someone atrocities or you pump them full of fear. So it's every night they're hitting them with, you know, crime, and they've got the fucking, it's designed. It's Ted Kaczynski, man. He warned us about the technocracy hell that we're headed toward and how it was going to be and how they would dope people up on drugs that wouldn't comply. They'll just change your brain, give you antidepressants and this and that. Like, I'm a Unabomber evangelist. Everybody needs to read the manifesto. He nailed the psychology of leftists better than anybody that's ever written anything about it. He nailed it. But I honestly feel like if we can get this alternative media back, that we can turn things around, starting on the state level. We have some pretty Chad governors and stuff right now. We can get this Jeffersonian model back, but it's only if we fight, and it ain't easy. It's as I know, it fucking sucks to have to constantly start over at zero, but I'm always going to do it because that's the only mode I know is attack. And I'm seeing more people. We couldn't have done this 10 years ago. You know, there just wasn't a way to reach. It's an idea whose day has come, right? They're not going to stop it, but it's not automatic either. And I feel like we are going to win this. And it all starts with media, which we're starting to get. They boiled the frog too fast. When they banned that many people off YouTube, it was too much. It's too much. You've got Clarence Thomas talking about it now. You've got Trump starting his own media. The monopoly is not going to last because just hundreds of millions of people adamantly disagree with this far leftist garbage.
Yeah.
And these far leftists they live in such a bubble. Everyone agrees with me because they're filtered from anything disagreeing, right? They have no idea what they're poking, and they live in La La Land. And I'm watching their cities fail and turn into homeless shelters and stuff. San Francisco has a scat app. I mean, like, they're falling apart, and that's their future. But that's not for all of us. We're going to push back, and we're going to secede, and we're going to win.
Well, that's a good note to close on. We're coming up on 2 hours. That was a great episode 100, everybody. And I think what Ryan's talking about here with the fact that, you know, we are growing and I think people are starting to care. The fact that I have the audience I have says a lot more about the times than it does about me. I'm just a truck driver. I'm no genius or scholar or anything. I just kind of understand what's going on a little bit, and people, I think, appreciate that. But I have in the description, I got a link to everyone who has a YouTube channel. We've got a link to, and then I've got a link to ANC Report. But we'll just close out. I'll give each of you just a last word about where people can follow you and any final thoughts. So Eric, why don't you go first?
Yeah, thanks, Reed, for putting this together. This is awesome. And, like Pete said, they can try and silence us. And they also try to divide us on the stupid small issues. And what you're doing, Reed, is you're walking away from that game and saying, no, we need to all come together. There's big picture things we agree on. And Ryan, you're right. Our message is powerful and our message is right. You can find me. I'm on, I do a weekly podcast, Jackman Radio, with my twin brother, Mike. And we're on Spotify, iTunes, Podbean. My Twitter handle is @Jackman Radio. And I'm on Instagram every day. I'm addicted to Instagram. My handle on there is Senator Jackman. And I am on Patreon at patreon.com/Jackman Radio. But we just got to keep doing this, man. And, this still means something to me, man. This flag really, I know it's on a boot, and I want to kick those fucking assholes right in their ass with this, you know. But the flags, it's a symbol, and it's freedom of speech, it's freedom of thought, it's the freedom to elevate our consciousness and better ourselves and those around us. And I do it with humor. That's my hook. That's how I get people. And you get a few people, then they start talking to a few people, and you just got to stay positive about it, man. Like Charlie Sheen says, it's always good to be around positive people. Winning. But this has been great. You guys are awesome, and I really appreciate it, Reed. And it's great to be here with all of you.
All right, yeah, Pete.
Free Man Beyond the Wall podcast, and my Twitter is at Peter R. Quiñones for now. You can find me there. So, yeah, that's about it. LibertarianInstitute.org is Scott Horton, Sheldon Richmond, myself, Kyle Anzalone, and a host of great podcasts and great writers. Check it out.
All right, and Ryan?
Pete has a Patreon too, or you can donate directly to him.
Yeah, on my website, freemanbeyondthewall.com/store. Set up own payment system with the help of Ryan and his nerd. And that was awesome.
Weaponized autism.
and I've been able to get a bunch of people off of Patreon and Substack and everything to come over to something that I control, and I really appreciate that. Hopefully,
Eric,
get
same
more
thing.
people.
I got a nerd. If you want to borrow a nerd and set up a paywall and start migrating your Patreon over, you get 20% more money, and you're not giving money to these woke people that ban myself, Sargon of Akkad, Lauren Sutherland, like they're banning Owen Benjamin. Yeah. So mine is ANC, that's anti-neocon, ancreport.com. And I have ANC Report on Twitter as of 2 days ago. So Twitter's I'm not going to be using it, but ancreport.com, and all the buttons are on there. I have a Telegram, I have a PeerTube, I have a VK account, and people should get used to using those things because VK, 500 million people are on that. It's the Russian Facebook. It's Facebook, except you can write facts and stuff and not worry about getting banned. Telegram's like Discord, except you don't get banned for saying they're two genders or whatever. But we write articles and post videos, and I do interviews with all over the place. Fine fellows like this. I've been on all three of you shows, actually. So that's where I work. I do a lot of work on the Epstein crime ring recently, and we also do a historical podcast and kind of reteaching what happened in our republic, because I feel like our education system has failed us so bad. I'm teaching adults history older than me. I love it and hate it at the same time, but they want to know, which is great, but it's also scary. The first thing they do is they come for your symbols of defiance and they erase your own history. We got to hold it. So ancreport.com's got all my stuff for now. You can get yourself a nice End All Aid to Israel mug on there and plenty of other offensive gear. It shouldn't be offensive. Stop killing kids should not be offensive, but it is because we live in clown world. So thanks again, Reed.
But those kids throw stones at tanks.
It's true. Some of them throw rocks. So
some of them scream at Dimona Nuclear Arsenal too.
Oh, that F-16 was just defending itself. They're human shields in their own bedroom. God, it's the saddest thing, man. One day Palestine will be free too. But like I'm more worried about like freeing our own states right now. Like it is getting bad. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, guys. That was good. Anyone who's watching who hasn't subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. I've got upcoming interviews with Tom Woods, Josh Smith, and even Tulsi Gabbard at some point. So make sure you subscribe and stay tuned for that. We'll catch you guys on the next.